Hello, everybody. I'm CJ. I'm your moderator for tonight, and I would like to welcome you to our special edition of the Boardroom, our Millennials Conversation with the mayoral candidate, Anthony Adams. We're so excited to be here. We have some really great panelists that have some passionate questions that they want to pose to you, Anthony Adams, so we can hear about your innovative and creative ways to help tackle the issues that we as millennials we face day to day. So our panelists today, we have Ralph Gaines. We also have Miss Kiana Jackson and the lovely English Reed Jones. And of course, the mayoral candidate, Anthony Adams. So how today is going to flow, everybody has their questions. When we're just going to honestly just kick it to you. And we're going to have this real candid conversation and just let the energy flow. But we definitely want to give a special thanks to Mr. Tim Moore, who organized all this, the UIN network, and a special honor to our event technician, Horace. We couldn't do none of this without you, man. So let's get right into it. And I would love to pose the first question. Mr. Adams, I know you do so much in the community, and your resume honestly speaks for itself. So we just want to hear from you. What's your agenda for young people? What do you have planned?
So thank you, CJ, and other panelists for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. It's always important for a candidate who's running for the highest office in the city of Detroit to address the issues and concerns of our residents. Our young people make up a substantial portion of our population. They also make up a substantial portion of our voting base, but they have not, you young folks have not voted in proportion to the power that you actually wield. And sort of our conversation today is really talking about, how we engage our young people, how we ensure that there is a pathway for you to participate in government and in business, and how does government support your issues and concerns, because you are the future of our city. And we need to begin the process of preparing you for that future. My agenda is quite aggressive because it does involve bringing in as many young folk as possible to prepare them for the next wave of leadership. We've done a really poor job in Detroit in really nurturing, supporting, providing structure for our young people to really engage in the political process. And to that end, it's my hope, belief, and desire that I can work and create the synergy of energy with young people such as yourselves who really are passionate about the electoral process, are passionate about politics, and passionate about the issues which impact your lives. And so it's up to me to provide a structure, be a sounding board, being a support mechanism, being a cheerleader, being a confidant, being a mentor to as many young people as possible, because this is your town, this is your future, and you should play a definite role in moving our city forward.
I love the sound of that, and I love the way that you said aggressive, because that's what we need. We need someone to honestly take the city by the reins and run with it. Do what you feel the city needs, and we're so excited about that. To kind of keep the conversation going. Our millennials, they use tech every day. Someone is using a cell phone, they're sending an email. There's some people are driving in electric cars nowadays. Tech is all around us. You can't even get away from it. So with Detroit being an international city and us having tech giants like Google and LinkedIn, Tech Town all here, what do you plan on doing to help the flourish of that industry and create opportunities for millennials in the tech industry?
I think, there are a couple of parts to that question. I think the first part I'd like to make sort of an observation that even though technology is all around us, the digital divide still is very broad and wide in the city of Detroit. And part of what we need to do if we're going to be successful in integrating technology into our daily lives is to make sure that we have broadband access throughout our entire city so that everyone can be physically connected to the web. That's one part. The second part, obviously, is creating an environment that we are nurturing our young people to understand the careers that are involved in technology, whether it's working at a very, very young age to integrate young people into programming. They're playing games right now. Why be a gamer when you actually can be the game designer? And how do we integrate those types of programs, which involve math skills, which involve reading skills, English and logic and art and music? How do we integrate that into our school system, as well as provide support services for our children so that they can be a part of this? The next component part, obviously, is to have graduates from our schools who have the technical skill and capacity to create and engage in this new world that we're living in. At the end of the day, if we're not about the business of preparing our young people for the future and for the jobs that require high levels of intellect and skill, then we're missing the market. So I've talked about some of the things I like to do earlier, in our educational environment, but also making sure, for example, that our community colleges have the necessary programs and trainings so that we can engage and get people involved in this process. And then finally, it's all about climate. Is the city of Detroit an inviting environment for people in technology to want to come to? What makes us attractive? What is our hook? What do we have to get people to buy into? And so maybe the hook is our cultural connection with music, the Motown industry, and how we bring them into that. How do we create music venues? How do we create techno music? I mean, techno music really is a Detroit-based music. It's technology. It's a different kind of technology, but how do we draw upon the creative things that we have in our city that we can build upon to provide the building blocks that's going to make our city exciting and hip for young people to want to be in?
Yes, I love the sound of that. That's definitely what we're looking for. I love how you connected the dots from music. Like I say, with us being in our cars, even listening to our phones, we listen. Everything is connected to music. You find it on all the social media, on all the TVs. So music is definitely the key. And we want to turn to our panelist, Ralph Gaines, and hear a couple questions from him. Ralph, would you like to pose your question?
Yes, I will. Good afternoon, Mr. Adams. Honored to be here. My question to you is, COVID has created a different future for everyone and brought a lot of opportunities. What would make you the best person to lead us into the future?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question, Ralph. I apologize. Let me turn up my volume. I'm sorry. Go ahead again.
I'm sorry about that, sir. My question to you was, COVID has created a different future with a lot of opportunities for us here in Detroit. What would make you the best person to lead us into a new future?
I think because I have a connection with the young and the old, having raised children here in the city of Detroit, understanding the cultural connection of what the history of the city is and what the future of the city should be, understanding the connection between education, business, finance, industry, how are these things connected? How do we make sure that our education environments are strong and that we can promote excellence in education, which is obviously part of my background, having been both general counsel for the Detroit Public Schools as well as the elected school board president. In addition, you also have an entrepreneurial spirit in me. I've been an entrepreneur on many different fronts, whether it's developing real estate in the Victoria Park subdivision, the Clarepoint Woods subdivision, understanding how housing is integrated into life and the types of things that you need in order to create smart houses and smart environments, whether it's by understanding just of the social construct here in the city of Detroit, how all things connect together, how people are connected together. I think once you start, as CJ would say, connecting the dots between these types of different aspects of life and yet understanding how they're actually integrated, it gives me, I think, a very unique perspective on how we can shape and create a holistic approach to what we need to do in order to move our city forward. Because you gotta have vision that reaches not only into the present, but also into the future. Where are the trends going with respect to municipal governments? Where are the career paths that people need to be involved in? How do we support our educational institutions in order to provide those level of services? How do we support our businesses in order to engage and create that new climate, that new environment that we need? And so when you begin to understand all of those different aspects of life and the energy that it takes, and also the ability to attract very creative people to work for you. I understand that I am not the smartest guy in the room, but I think I am pretty smart in trying to identify young talent that's engaged in this world, talent that understands this world, bringing them to the table, making them a part of it, I think makes me the most qualified candidate in this race to really integrate all of these different technologies and social norms and constructs to help our city become great.
Yes, sir. And I also.
Ralph, I would love for you to pose your second question now.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I saw you much room. Yes, I truly agree with you. Now, my next question goes far as with the education. A lot of youth and a lot of city residents don't have the funding to continue their education.
Yeah.
Far as college, what could you do to help those be able to get the resources to be able to go to college and pick up that degree in which they would love to pursue in life?
So I think we always understand that education starts very early in life. And part of being prepared to in later in life is getting the preparation, the proper foundation in the beginning stages of life. Because if we can lay the appropriate building blocks for our young people in school so that they have the necessary skills, it becomes a little easier when you move through schools and through high school to qualify for the various types of programs that are out there. So part of this obviously has to be addressing early childhood education. How do we provide necessary support mechanisms? How do we provide enhanced programming? For example, Detroit Libraries has this great program called Junior Great Books, wonderful program, which teaches analytical, critical thinking, not just reading the material, but breaking down and analyzing the information that's contained within that. And so make a DAPSET program, early technology, learning, understanding different building blocks of science and technology, engineering. These things are real important. So we got to lay the foundation early in our young people's lives so that they have the necessary skills. And then you have the Detroit Promise, which hasn't been, I would say, as necessarily robust funded as it should be. How do we begin to divert resources and put the strong arm on those foundations and corporations who feed off the city of Detroit? Where is their financial commitment to ensuring that the scholarship funds are in place to do what we need to do? And then at the end of the day, obviously, you've got to have an advocate for children in the city of Detroit who is an educational advocate. And so to that end, I propose the creation of a chief education officer, someone who will advocate for the children in the city of Detroit, someone who can go across the country and market our young people with their creative ideals and energy. The mayor has to be the biggest cheerleader for the school district in the world. If I can't advocate for the children in our community and put them up on a platter and promote them in the broader stratosphere, making sure that colleges understand the importance of education for the people of the city of Detroit, and also providing support to the parents and filling out the paperwork and the necessary forms. All this stuff is very tedious, especially if you're a working class parent and may not have access to the level of technology or have the skills that you need in order to help your child do their work. And so part of my role as mayor is I got to be about that business. I got to do that. I can't just talk about it. I got to make sure that the things are in place in order to make that happen.
Being about that business. You know, I love that you said that, you know, because we got a lot of bosses that's watching right now, and I know they can relate. And we're going to turn now to a real boss, Miss Kiana Jackson, because I know she got some really great questions. Now, Miss Kiana, I'm going to ask your first question, and we're going to pose it to Mr. Adams, and then after that, we're going to take a short break after Mr. Adams answers, okay?
Okay, so I get one question before break?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what I have been dying to ask you like all night, what does reparations look like in extremely impoverished areas like Brightmoor?
So when we're talking about Brightmoor, obviously we're talking about one of the most hardest hit areas in Detroit. And there has been, I would say, some level of attention by different philanthropic organizations to support programming in the Brightmoor area. And you do have the universities. I know, for example, you got Michigan State University. They're doing some things around urban agriculture and gardening. You've got Detroit Beehive, collective kind of working in the area. You've got, you have a lot of different programs that are working in that. What reparations look at in Brightmoor, obviously, is how we focus on creating viable housing stock, affordable housing in the community. The community has been devastated by the foreclosure crisis, by the blight crisis, and we've got a lot of vacant land, but you also have a lot of substandard structures which need to be repaired. It's actually a very interesting area because it has a topography. You have hills, there's some nice things that you have out there that you can market and create as a really, really very viable community, a walkable community that we like to talk about here in the city of Detroit. And so the first part of reparations, obviously, is to stabilize the housing stock in the city. The second part of that stabilization strategy then goes directly towards education institutions and recreational opportunities that need to exist in that area. And that's working in concert with the recreation department, working in concert with DPS and the charter schools that operate in that area to ensure that we maintain a high level of educational excellence. The third part of reparations looks like how do we provide the job training skills to enhance the ability of the people who actually live in the community? How do we help support them in uplifting their education, providing them with the technical training and skills that they need in order to increase their earning powers? All these things were important: housing, education, job training, job skills, and then
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you're talking about job training, Detroit has a job training center. Are you aware of that?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, so do you know that they're charging folks $600, $700, $800 to take these courses?
They shouldn't be charging anything.
Exactly.
I mean, the money is there. They're getting federal grant dollars for training. They're getting state money. They shouldn't be charging anything to provide someone with a pathway to create a better life. And when I talk about job training, I'm talking about something far deeper than what goes on the surface level here. Because the common refrain is, oh, we have job training programs. Yes, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Because we have to have a unique one-on-one relationship with the people that we're actually serving. Really understand what it takes to get them, to put them in a productive path towards citizenship. What does that really entail? What are the ancillary services that are needed in order to help that parent, be it childcare, be it social worker, psychological services, support? These are all types of holistic approaches that I understand that we need, which is far different than sort of the static model of I'm gonna charge you, but then I'm not gonna provide you with everything that you need in order to make it work. We gotta be much more robust, much more intentional, because if we aren't, then we continue to end up with the same result that we do, which is 160,000 people that have opted out of the workforce, 60% of the population receiving some type of transfer payment from the state of Michigan, and a lot of people walking around hopeless and lost because they don't really have a real direction in their life.
Okay. CJ?
Awesome. Thank you, mayoral candidate Anthony Adams. We really appreciate your input. And so for all our viewers, please get your questions ready, because after the break, we will be getting to that Q&A. But now's the time for the break. We have a video made just for you. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you shortly.
Individuals without water. We've had 100,000 water shutoffs, more than that in the last number of years in Detroit. The judge ruled that the right of the water creates irreparable harm for an individual. That harm is a lesser harm than the bondholders being paid. So what's going on now is these same banks and corporations that really have a worldwide consortium called the World Economic Forum have decided to make Detroit their model for what they call urban transformation. And they're setting up a global office for urban transformation, if in all places in Gilbert's headquarters, to hold Detroit up as the model for what they want to do to cities all over the world and already doing to cities, particularly African-American cities in this country. We have a coalition to say no to that. We want to expose the role of the banks and major corporations and literally the robbing of the resources of our city and say, no, they don't offer us transformation. What they need to do is be paying reparations for the harm they caused, for the money they stole from the people of Detroit, and put it in the hands of the people who will know how to build, who know how to rebuild our communities. That's kind of what I'm speaking to right now. We have a rally today, and I think that puts the eviction crisis into perspective. Many of the evictions, Detroit, as I said, now we have 35,000 evictions a year. Detroit was a homeowner city. Most of these evictions are being carried out by investors. Many of them are two-bit investors who picked up the homes off of foreclosure for virtually no funds, and then put individuals into all they're into it is making a quick buck and are evicting people wholesale. And unfortunately, the courts go along with it. There've been a lot of federal funds that have been appropriated for rental assistance, but unfortunately, the bulk of those federal funds never get to the people. And we believe there needs to be a moratorium on evictions, moratorium on foreclosures, but even further than that, we believe that we need to put demands on those who cause the crisis in our city, which are the banks and major corporations, especially the banks that cause the crisis, to pay us back for what they caused. And Dan Gilbert, far from being the model for urban transformation, Dan Gilbert was the one who wrote most of these subprime loans. He always says, I wasn't the forecloser. Yeah, he wrote the loans, then sold them off to the banks. That's how he got rich. And now he gets $1 billion a year in tax subsidies that come out of our schools, that come out of our libraries, to build his projects downtown. So he'll throw a couple $1 million, say, oh, he's helping people. But in the meantime, we're subsidizing Gilbert to the tune of $1 billion. All the tax dollars that come out of his development are captured by him. He gets them paid to him. They're not paid to the city. All the increased property taxes from what he develops, they go directly to him. They're called tax captures. It's a scheme that's going on. And that's really what we want to expose, that if we're going to rebuild Detroit, if we're going to make Detroit go back to the great city we were, a city of a working class, especially where African Americans held political power, it was a city where people could live in a decent way, where African Americans owned home, we got to take on those who are the really cause of those problems. And they go deeper than Duggan, though he's nothing but an agent for these banks and corporations. They go deeper than city council, and we've seen how all these councilmen people are getting paid off by these developers. They go by challenging those who are the real source of the problem, and we believe the source of those problems are the banks and corporations, and especially the banks in the recent period. And that's really the message, and that's been our message for many years.
Awesome. So we're back. We're going to resume our conversation. This is a special edition of the Boardroom, a millennial conversation with the mayoral candidate, Anthony Adams. And, you know, Anthony Adams, we're so excited again to have you here, to be able to have this opportunity to share with you our things that we honestly face day to day. So I love that video. I love what they were saying, because we are all working together towards building a better Detroit. And with this conversation, I feel like it is fueling us. It is giving us the energy. It's igniting our souls, giving us the hope that we need to see our pathway towards better. So Kiana, we would love to get right back to you. We love your dynamic questions. Please, Ms. Jackson, pose your second question to mayoral candidate Anthony Adams.
This one was just kind of like a general question, but some people feel that we should not get, and I mean, we as in Detroiters should not get reparations. What is your position?
Well, that's silly. We should get reparations, because reparations not only is a federal and state issue, but it's also a local issue. People who understand the history of Detroit understand the history of the White Citizens Council, which worked to the exclusion of Black homeowners across the entire city of Detroit. We also understand the historical significance of various racial covenant cases, racial covenants which prohibited Blacks from owning property. A major case was Shelley versus Kramer, which actually arose in Michigan restricted covenants, which the Supreme Court struck down and said that it was illegal to enforce those types of covenants. So when you couple that with federal highway policy, which removed Black folks from their homes and put them in squalor conditions, when you look at racial restrictive covenants, which prohibited Black folks from owning homes, and then you have the advent of the White Citizens Council, which played an integral role in keeping the high level of segregation that we have in the city of Detroit, you understand that reparations is needed because we have to begin to undo and correct some of the systemic issues of racism that exist. So we have a systemic issue of racism with respect to mortgage lending here in the city of Detroit. We have mortgage lenders who discriminate against Black people buying mortgages at a 2-to-1 rate than whites. That's a racial institutional issue. We also have institutional racism with respect to insurance rates and charges currently in the city of Detroit. So we're paying high interest rates on our money. We're paying high insurance rates. All those things cry for some level of reparations to correct the injustices of the past, which are impacting Black folks in the future.
Thank you for that. I think that was an awesome answer. And now we would love to turn to our next panelist, Miss English Reed Jones. She has a couple questions that she would love to pose to you. English?
Hello, Mr. Adams.
Hello, English with an I.
Hey, I'm glad that you've taken the time to be on this call with us, and constantly showing just how amazing you are and how prepared you are for this role. And so the question that I have is, Detroit has among the highest crime and unemployment, the lowest home ownership rate, and the lowest percentage of city contracts for Black businesses. Yet, despite all this, Detroiters elect the same politicians over and over. How can you help to change that counterproductive attitude?
I think I have to be about the business of uplifting the people's understanding of the process and how it impacts them. And that requires that you have a mayor who constantly speaks to the issues that are impacting the people. This job is an administrative job, but it's also an inspirational and spiritual job. You got to have someone who understands that people need to be talked with, not talked to, that their issues need to be concerned, that you have to have a high level of compassion for what actually goes on in our city so that people feel you and feel your connection, feel your passion, and that they understand that you feel their pain. And so there's a lot of conversation that needs to go on to talk about that. But there's also a lot of legwork and administrative things that need to be done. And so when you talk about crime in our city, I continuously say that crime is directly tied to poverty. If we rank #1 in poverty, we rank #1 in crime. How do we discouple or disengage those two? Because in order to disengage it, you have to first speak to the educational deficits of the people who are actually committing the crimes. We know who they are. We know what their skill level, what skills they lack. We know the training that they lack. And so how do we go about the business of providing them with a pathway towards citizenship? Obviously, they've done some things with respect to criminal justice reform that allows people to get their records expunged, but expungement without opportunity doesn't mean anything. And so how do we help people get their lives together, provide them with constructive things that are going to help them move forward? It might even include providing them with some type of stipend so that they aren't dabbling in crime while they're trying to get their education, their training, their skills, their life back in order. When we talk about unemployment, obviously unemployment is tied to the education, but it's also tied to the availability of jobs that people actually can do in our community. And so part of my approach is we strengthen our local business community, the people who operate the small businesses in the community, in the neighborhoods, where people can actually walk to work and not necessarily rely upon public transportation to get there, to enhance their businesses so that they can hire the people in our own communities, provide them with skills, provide them with a living wage. The wages in Detroit are severely depressed. We have bus drivers, for example, that qualify for public assistance, which is crazy, given the fact that they're operating a $400,000 piece of equipment with people's lives in it. You would think we would value that more in what we do. When we talk about home ownership, you know I am a big advocate of home ownership. I preach, that's like the gospel to me. People have to own their homes. We have to put people in positions to own their homes. And as you know, there are a lot of creative programs that are out there designed to help people get in homes. How do we make you aware of these programs? How do we prepare you for the home ownership opportunities that come about? What does it take in order to own a house? What's the responsibility? All these are educational things that we have to talk about. And often I talk about integrating things in a broader ecosphere of talking about home ownership in our schools, making kids understand the importance that in order to build wealth in America, there are only probably 3 ways you can get it. One is to inherit it. Well, we missed that train. We inherit it. 2 is to work hard and create some transformational ideal like Google and Facebook and Apple. Okay, I missed that train. You know, then is to own your own business, which is a lot of hard work, and to own your own home. Those are the ways you actually can get wealth. And so we have to make people understand that those things, you know, are important because they drive what we need to drive here in our own community. And if we aren't promoting that, if we aren't explaining that, then we aren't doing our job to help the people here in our community. So we have to talk about it. We have to show people the pathway. We have to provide people with the tools. We have to provide people with the encouragement. At the end of the day, we have to create the environment which people understand that's important. Lastly, when you talk about Black contract, that's just a mindset. How do we make sure that Blacks get contracts in the city of Detroit? As I told someone, I am pro-Black business and understand that Black folks who pay taxes have to have the ability to earn a living from the city for the taxes that they pay. And so if it means structuring bid packages in a manner that allows smaller Black businesses to take place, if it means partnering in relationships, well, there's a meaningful partnership, not this 5% pass-through situation, but a meaningful relationship where you're actually learning the skills and the training and the tools and the jobs necessary to do what they need to do. At the end of the day, it's all about how we look at this thing. If we're not approaching it from a passionate standpoint, being energetic about it, and then bringing the young people with the ideals to make this work, we can make it happen.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much. I appreciate that thorough answer and for touching on all the points because that was a loaded question. My next question is, how, as mayor, how do you plan to change the dynamic of our culture here in Detroit? I know like back in the day, you know, we're the Motor City, right? We have Motown. People wanted to be here in Detroit, right? And we kind of see now like young people, they're leaving, right? Like they're, you know, they may not feel like the culture, you know, is here for them. So as mayor, what do you plan to do?
Well, first of all, we want to thank you all for staying, because all the young people on this call are just extremely dynamic and talented. They could take their talents. They could take their talents to South Beach, you know, as a famous basketball player once says. But you made it a point to stay here in the city of Detroit, and I commend you for that, because when you're talented, you have options. What we first have to do is we got to make it clear that this is a city that embraces young people and young culture, and that we have to define what our hooks are with respect to how we keep you here. And so if we're talking about an entrepreneur climate where Black entrepreneurs can get together and have support networks and services offered for them, that helps us do what we need to do. Well, we can uplift and elevate our young Black businesses, our young Black business professionals. That's very, very important, because they have to be able to see that their business can grow, that the environment is right, and that they are actually appreciated here in the city of Detroit. We also have to be very intentional in our strategies on how we keep and retain and also attract young business talent here. What are the things that young people are looking for? You got to have young culture. You got to have something that entices people. We got to build on our history of Motown, but also build on to our current history with tech and music. What's the next trend in these things? I don't know. You all have to tell me, because I mean, I'm still stuck on, you know, Charlie Bird and Miles Davis and people like that. But, you know, we need young people to integrate into our systems, to bring in their ideas, to bring in their talents, so that they understand that this is the place to be. You know, it used to be a time when Detroit was the place. We had more Black doctors, Black lawyers, Black musicians, Black professionals, Black judges. We had everything. And now all of a sudden, everybody talk about Atlanta. Well, just remember, Atlanta is like half the size of the city of Detroit. It just boggles my mind on it. The weather might be a little better, but at the end of the day, we have all the things that we need with the young talent. We just have to nurture that. We have to encourage it. And we have to understand that that is the future of our city, that you are the future, and that we need you to play an integral role in this process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Adams. We are going to make sure people know Detroit is the place to be. I love it here. And thank you so much for your leadership and answering our question.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And so now we turn into all our panelists, opening up the floor, just saying if you guys had any additional questions, you may interject. But we do want to thank you, Mr. Adams. We really want to thank you, because having this type of opportunity to build transparency within our city leaders is honestly what we need to show other millennials just like us that it's just a matter of a conversation to bring change. And we believe in change.
You know, with me, it's not just checking a box. You know, I think we have a check the box philosophy. Okay, I did this. All right, let me check that box. Well, this is about embracing and blowing the box up and blowing out the strictures that keep us confined within a certain way of thinking about how we have to attack and approach things. It's about twisting the bottle, turning the table over, lifting it up, pulling it down, breaking it apart, putting it back together again in a manner that's constructive. Because if we don't deconstruct the myths which have prohibited us from moving forward, then we can never put ourselves in position to be creative with all the talent and energy that we have in our community.
Yes, sir, most definitely. And I would like to also open the floor for you now to deliver any closing remarks that you might have. And please let everyone know where they can support you during this GOTV week. We're all going to be out at the polls.
So first of all, let me say thank you for your questions. Probing questions which require great thought and consideration, and allow me to really display the breadth of my experience and my passion for the people who live in the city of Detroit. My campaign headquarters is located at 19512 Livernois on the Avenue of Fashions. My phone number is 313-688-6032. My campaign email is aa4mayor@gmail.com. My website is anthonyadams4mayor.com. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and I even got a TikTok. I got a TikTok, yeah, okay. And I've been using Reels every now and then too. So I'm trying to get up on what you all do. I'm here in the mornings, and then obviously in the field, I'm out. November the 2nd is the election, but you can vote now if you like. Early voting is open for people to go in to do what they need to do. Please encourage your family and friends to vote for me. Please reach out for 10 of your friends to tell them that you heard this dynamic, fantastic, and engaging, entertaining, astute man who really loves young people, young culture, and who has an eye for the future and understands the importance of young people and how we really need you to be engaged in this situation. And so I thank you all for giving me the platform. It's been a pleasure. You know, I've gone through so many Zoom conversations, but each conversation teaches me a little something different about the people and what people really need to hear and what they're feeling in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. And we would also like to open up the floor for Mr. Tim, if you will have any words.
Well, yeah, listen, I appreciate you young folks coming out and sharing your ideas and your thoughts about how you want to see the city operate. We have one more week to go, and we have to do twice as much as we've done in the last 2 months. So a key thing is reminding your parents and aunts and uncles and grandmothers that Anthony Adams is the best hope for the future of Detroit young people. So.